I'm Tôn Như Nguyen and I'm going to be analyzing housing affordability in Sydney in the year 2020 to 2025. Sydney is consistently ranked one of the least affordable housing markets in the world. This analysis uses a custom dataset representing the Sydney housing market between 2020 to 2025. The dataset combines real trends from CoreLogic, ABS, and the RBA with the simplified structure for business analytics and economic modeling. With the variables are median income, interest rate, dwelling approvals, and median house price. The dataset was constructed to explore how demand side, which is income borrowing cost, and the supply side, approvals, factors that affect Sydney house prices. The first demand curve, T0, reflects market condition in 2020. However, when the Reserve Bank of Australia reduced the interest rate to a historic low of 0.1% in late 2020, borrowing became significantly cheaper. This increased households' purchasing power and investor activity, shifting the demand curve to the right to D1. As a result, both the equilibrium price and quantity increased. Sydney's median house price rose from around 1.05 million in 2020 to over 1.24 million in 2022. However, when the RBA began to increase interest rate from 2022 onwards, reaching 4.35% by 2024, mortgage repayments rose sharply and borrowing capacity fell. This reduced the affordability of housing and shifted the demand curve back to the left, shown as D2. Price growth slowed and sales volume declined, even though supply has not changed. This pattern demonstrates a key economic principles. In markets where supply is inelastic, changes in demand primarily affect price, not quantity. In Sydney, because supply cannot expand quickly, the market adjusts through rising or falling prices rather than increased construction. To analyze how sensitive buyers are to price changes, I calculated the price elasticity of demand using sales volume and demand house price data. Between 2020 and 2022, prices in Sydney rose by approximately 18%, but sales volume only increased around 5%. This gives an elasticity value of 0.29, which is less than 1, meaning demand for housing is price inelastic. This result is consistent with economic theory because housing is a necessity good and buyers in Sydney are limited more by borrowing capacity than by price. Even when prices rise, people still need housing for work, family, and other purposes, so quantity demanded does not fall proportionally. This helps explain why high prices persist in Sydney even under affordability pressure. Changes in price do not significantly reduce demand, which keeps the market competitive and expensive. For this slide, I use summary statistics and trend analysis to identify key patterns in Sydney's housing market. From 2020 to 2022, we see a clear increase in both household income and housing prices, driven by low interest rates. However, once rates rose from 0.1% to over 4%, the growth in prices stopped, even though incomes continued to rise. The summary statistics show that while income grew steadily, supply through dwelling approvals actually fell, reinforcing that Sydney's housing supply is inelastic. By visualizing these variables together, we can see that interest rate movements have a strong inverse relationship with house price change. The economic theory told us prices are driven by demand factors like income and interest rates and supply. Our regression model tested this theory with real data. The result was a model with a 96% accuracy. The most important number here is the negative 21,000. It means for every 1% of interest rate rise, the model predicts a $21,000 drop in the median price. You can see our model's prediction based solely on these three factors track almost perfectly with actual prices. This validates that interest rates are the primary lever moving the market right now. From business perspective, if you're a property developer, you now know that interest rates are your biggest signal. If you are a buyer, you understand that your borrowing power is directly tied to interest rate more than anything else. This pivot table calculates the year-on-year percentage change for each key metric. The pivot chart then visualizes these two factors, house price changes versus interest rate changes. I choose this tool because a pivot analysis can quickly highlight trends and magnitudes that can be lost in raw data. The chart shows that movement in interest rates are significantly larger than changes in prices. The sharp spikes in borrowing costs align closely with the end of the price boom and the downturn. This clearly illustrates that interest rates are the primary short-term driver of the market, outweighing the effects of steady income growth. This information enables better business decisions by providing a clear signal. Instead of reacting to lagging price indicators, stakeholders can now prioritize monitoring leading indicators like central bank policy. For a developer, this means timing projects around the interest rate cycle. For an investor, it means assessing risk based on future borrowing costs, not just current prices. After finishing this project, skills showcased are very helpful. Specifically, as a market analyst, these skills would allow me to guide critical development, timing decisions based on interest rate projections, assess project risk under different economic scenarios, and communicate complex market dynamics to execute leadership. The true value lies in connecting the dots between raw data, economic principles, and strategic business outcome, exactly the capacity that enables organizations to navigate complex market with confidence.